Since 1963, the Beatles have been acclaimed musicians and remain one of the most popular bands of all time. Over 5 decades after their breakup, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr continue to answer questions about the group in interviews. New generations of fans continue to fall in love with the band. However, they cannot win over everyone. Many people, including several fellow musicians, despise the band. 1. Elvis Presley. Elvis was idolized by the Beatles as children, thus the musicians' treatment of them must have hurt. The band met Elvis in 1965, and he was amicable, despite his earlier reluctance to meet them. 5 years later, however, Elvis was singing a different song. In a 1970 encounter with Richard Nixon, Elvis stated that the Beatles were deeply and dangerously un-American. Notably, the band had already proclaimed its breakup by this point. The Beatles had been a real force in the anti-American spirit, he told the president, according to Vox. They came to this country, made their money, and then returned to England where they promoted an anti-American theme. 2. Pete Townshend. Pete Townshend of The Who has recently declared his admiration for the Beatles, although he hasn't always felt this way. In a 1966 interview, Townshend rolled his eyes at the band. Actually, this afternoon, John Entwistle and I were listening to a stereo LP of The Beatles, What's He Say Oh, in which the voices come out of the one side and the backing track comes out of the other, he explained. When you actually hear the backing tracks of the Beatles without their voices, they're flippin' lousy. In 1982, Townshend told Rolling Stone that he liked the former Beatles as people, but couldn't fully support them as artists. I've always said that I've never been a big fan of the Beatles. To me, rock was the Stones, and before that, Chuck Berry. And before that, maybe a few people who lived in fields in Louisiana, he stated. 3. Quincy Jones. Though he has since apologized for his views, Jones previously claimed that the Beatles did not appear to be competent musicians. They were the worst musicians in the world, he told Vulture in 2018. They weren't playing mother F***. Paul was the worst bassist I had ever heard, and Ringo? Don't even mention it. 4. Lou Reed declared his dislike for the Beatles in an interview with Joe Smith in 1987. I never liked the Beatles, he explained. I thought they were garbage. If you say, who did you like? I like nobody.